They looked me in the eye and said, "Feeding your kid is a waste of food." That's when I knew my parents weren't just toxic, they were monsters. Before I get into it, if you've ever had to cut off family for your own peace, you'll understand why I'm telling this story. If it connects with you, please show your support. Hit subscribe, leave a like, and maybe even share it with someone who needs to hear it. My name's Emily. I'm 32, married to a kind man named David, and we have a little boy named Noah. He's 5, smart, gentle, and just the kind of kid who says thank you when you hand him a cracker. I work full-time, juggling meetings and dinner preps, but honestly, being a mom is the best part of my day. Now, about my parents, Paul and Janice. Growing up with them wasn't easy. They weren't outright cruel, but cold and distant in a way that makes you feel like a guest in your own house. Still, we kept contact. Holiday visits, birthday calls, just enough to keep things civil. David never liked them much, but he stayed quiet for my sake. A few months ago, David and I planned a weekend away. First time in over a year. Just 2 nights at a lakeside cabin. Nothing fancy, just time for us to breathe. We asked my parents to watch Noah. I hesitated. Something about the idea made my stomach twist, but I told myself I was overthinking. They're his grandparents, right? 2 days would be fine. The drop-off was awkward. My dad barely said hello. My mom gave Noah a stiff smile and a half-hearted hug. I packed all his meals, snacks, even extra clothes labeled by day. I went over his bedtime routine twice. My mom waved me off like I was being dramatic. Driving away, I felt weird. David noticed. "You okay?" he asked. I nodded. I just needed to relax. That night, I sent my mom a text. "Everything okay with Noah?" No reply. I told myself she probably just forgot. The next morning, still nothing. I called. No answer. Then around noon, my phone buzzed. It was my parents' neighbor, Mrs. Donnelly. She sounded worried. I don't mean to cause alarm, but I saw Noah outside by himself. He looked pale and was just sitting on the ground for a long time. "Is everything all right?" My heart dropped. I thanked her, told her we were on our way, and hung up. I was already grabbing my bag. David didn't ask questions. He saw my face and just said, "Let's go." We got in the car and started the drive back home, and the whole time, my hands wouldn't stop shaking. Something was wrong. Really wrong. And I had no idea just how bad it was going to be. The whole drive back, my stomach was in knots. I kept checking my phone, hoping my mom had finally replied. Nothing. I sent another message. "Is Noah okay? Please let me know." Still silence. David reached over and squeezed my hand. "We'll be there soon," he said. I nodded, but my mind was racing. When we pulled into my parents' driveway, everything looked normal. Too normal. Like nothing had happened. I rushed to the door and rang the bell. My dad opened it, surprised to see us. "Didn't expect you back so soon," he said, completely unfazed. "Where's Noah?" I asked immediately, stepping past him. My mom appeared from the kitchen, drying her hands with a towel. "He's in the back. He's fine." I didn't wait. I headed straight to the backyard. And there he was, sitting in the grass, staring at the ground. His little face was pale, lips dry, and he looked so tired. I ran to him. "Noah, baby." He looked up slowly, eyes dull. My heart cracked. He leaned into me without saying a word. His skin was warm, too warm. I picked him up and carried him inside. David followed, furious but silent. Once we were in the living room, I turned to my mom. "Why didn't you answer my messages? What's going on?" She rolled her eyes. "We're not glued to our phones like you, Emily." I glanced toward the kitchen. "Did he eat anything?" "He looks sick." My dad snorted. "That boy eats like a pig. Always asking for snacks, always whining. We're not running a buffet." I froze. "He's 5. He needs regular meals." My mom shrugged. "There's food. He just didn't want it." Something felt off. I walked to the fridge and opened it. My stomach sank. A bottle of ketchup, an old carton of milk, and a single slice of bread. That was it. The pantry wasn't much better. Cans of beans, but nothing a child would eat. No juice, no fruit, not even cereal. I turned back, barely keeping my voice steady. "You didn't feed him. He's not starving," my dad said, annoyed. "You overfeed him anyway. It's wasteful." Those words hit like ice. Wasteful. Like my son's hunger didn't matter. David stepped forward, his fists clenched. "We're leaving. Now." I held Noah close, my heart pounding. I wanted to scream. Instead, I whispered to my son, "We're going home, sweetheart." And I meant it. Not just from this visit, but from them. I didn't even make it to the front door before I turned back around. "No," I said, my voice shaking. "You don't get to do this and act like it's no big deal." My mom raised an eyebrow, arms crossed. "What are you going on about now? You starved my son," I snapped. "You ignored my messages. You let him sit outside alone for hours. He could have passed out. He could have." "Oh, please," my dad cut in, waving his hand like I was being dramatic. "He's not made of glass." David stepped forward. "He's 5. A 5-year-old. You left him dehydrated in your yard with no food in the house. My dad actually chuckled. He didn't ask for water. My jaw dropped. Are you hearing yourselves? The words started to pour out, fast and angry. You never took care of me. I used to go to bed hungry all the time. Remember that? Or do you just pretend it didn't happen? My mom's face went stiff. You always exaggerate. We fed you. Dry toast and boiled carrots? I laughed bitterly. When there was steak in the freezer, you said was only for grown-ups. When I was 10, and you told me dinner was for people who earned it. David looked stunned. You never told me that. I glanced at him, tears already in my eyes. I didn't want to remember it myself. My father crossed his arms. You're still hung up on ancient history? History that repeats, I shot back. Noah clung to my neck, quiet but watching. I held him tighter. You always told me I was too much. Too loud. Too needy. You said I ruined everything. And now you've done it again to him. He's a spoiled little brat, my mom snapped. Always expecting snacks, naps, attention. He's a child. I screamed. And he's not the problem. You are. David stepped in again. We're filing a report. You're not going near him again. My dad smirked. What are you going to say? That we didn't offer him cookies. Emily's voice cracked. No. I'll say I trusted the wrong people. Silence. Thick and cold. Noah buried his face in my neck. I kissed the top of his head, shaking all over. I'm done, I said. You won't see him again. You won't see me again. My mom scoffed. You'll come running back. You always do. No, I said quietly. Not this time. I turned and walked out the door without looking back. The next morning, I called the non-emergency police line. I didn't want to make a huge scene, but I needed it on record. I asked for a welfare check. I gave them my parents' address, explained what happened, and made it clear I wasn't accusing them of anything criminal, just that I had serious concerns for any future child visits in that house. When the officer called me back later, he confirmed what I already knew. The home's clean, but yeah, fridge is almost empty. No signs of abuse, but I get why you're upset. That was it. No charges, no consequences. Just a note in some file somewhere. After that, I made an appointment with Noah's pediatrician. He was quiet during the visit, letting the nurse poke and prod him without fuss. She weighed him twice, like she didn't believe the number. The doctor pulled me aside. He's showing early signs of dehydration and mild malnutrition. He's okay, but 2 more days and this could have been worse. I nodded, but I couldn't stop shaking. The guilt hit me like a freight train. I let this happen. That night, I cried in bed while Noah slept between us. David held me without saying a word. Just let me fall apart. Maybe I should have known, I whispered. I did know. I just ignored it. No, he said. You gave them a chance. That's not weakness. That's hope. It's them who broke it. We agreed right then, no more chances. No more visits. No more contact. Word spread fast in the family. My cousin messaged me first, then my uncle, then one of my mom's sisters. Most were shocked. A few asked what happened. Then came the call from Aunt Linda. You're blowing this out of proportion, she said, not even 5 minutes into the conversation. They're old. They don't know how to deal with young kids anymore. He didn't eat, Linda, I said, trying to stay calm. For 2 days. He was sick. You were always sensitive, she replied. They raised you just fine. My hand clenched around the phone. No, they didn't. You just weren't looking close enough. I hung up after that. It hit me later that night. This wasn't just about my parents. The whole family had learned to look away, to stay quiet, to excuse the unacceptable. The rot went deeper than I thought, and I wasn't going to let it touch my son. A week after everything happened, I started therapy. I hadn't seen a therapist since college, and even then, I'd always brushed off the hard stuff. But this time felt different. I couldn't shake the image of Noah sitting alone in that backyard, quiet, pale, waiting for someone to care. And worse, I couldn't stop seeing myself in him. My therapist was gentle. She asked about my childhood. I told her the basic version at first. Strict parents, not very affectionate, always focused on being grateful. That word came up a lot. They always said kids should be grateful for what they get. I told her during one session. Like, asking for more was rude. Even if it was something like food or attention or help with homework. She tilted her head. And how did that make you feel growing up? I stared at the floor. Like I was a burden. Like existing was already too much. She nodded slowly. That's not discipline. That's emotional neglect. That word, neglect, hit me hard. I'd never let myself call it that. I always assumed other kids had it worse. That maybe I was too dramatic, too needy. But when I thought about it, really thought about it, the memories came back clearer than ever. The times I got left at school for hours because they forgot to pick me up. The Christmas I got socks while they bought a new TV. The way they used to tell me, you don't know how lucky you are, when I cried. I went up into the attic that weekend and found the old shoebox where I kept my high school journals. They were still there, cheap notebooks, stuffed with messy handwriting and bitter scribbles. I sat on the floor and read page after page. So many entries started the same. I don't know why I'm always so sad. They said I should stop acting like a victim. Maybe I just need to try harder. The words felt like they were written by someone else, but I knew they were mine. I remembered the feeling of writing them, lonely, confused, desperate to feel seen. One entry stopped me cold. If I ever have a kid, I'm going to hug them every day and tell them they matter, even when they mess up. Especially then. I started crying and didn't stop for a long time. The betrayal wasn't just that my parents had treated Noah the way they did. It was realizing they had always been like this. They didn't change. They didn't soften. They just learned to smile more and say the right things at family dinners. They learned how to look normal. But deep down, nothing had changed. They were still the same people who believed love was something you earned. That kids should be quiet, grateful, and easy. And I wasn't going to let them pass that on to my son. I didn't want drama. I wasn't looking for attention or pity or to cancel anyone. But I wanted justice, my own kind. Quiet, steady, and permanent. The day after I read through my old journals, I filed for a restraining order. It wasn't easy. The officer at the desk looked skeptical when I explained. Emotional neglect, he repeated. Not physical? I nodded. But it was abuse. And now it's directed at my son. I brought the pediatrician's report, the texts. I wrote a full statement. I didn't cry. I didn't plead. I just told the truth. A week later, the order was granted. They were legally banned from coming near us. That's when the messages started. Not from my parents directly, they were too smart for that, but through others. A cousin's text. They're heartbroken. They don't understand what they did wrong. An email from a blocked address. We raised you better than this. David had enough. He contacted a lawyer friend, and we had cease and desist letters sent to them and anyone trying to relay their guilt trips. The tone changed fast. No more, please talk to us. Now it was, you'll regret this. But I didn't. Not for 1 second. Instead, I got to work on something else. Something for myself. I set up a camera in our spare room, sat down one night when Noah was asleep, and I just talked. Not for YouTube. Not for TikTok. Just for me. I told the whole story, from the day I dropped Noah off, all the way back to my own childhood. Every cold dinner, every ignored birthday, every time I was told I was too much. I didn't cry while filming. I didn't even flinch. It felt like letting poison drain out. And when I finished, I saved the video on a hard drive and locked it away. I didn't need anyone else to hear it. Just knowing I'd said it out loud was enough. My revenge wasn't about ruining them online or exposing them publicly. It was about cutting their roots out of my life completely. I wasn't just protecting Noah from them. I was protecting myself, my future, my peace. They didn't get to define me anymore. I was going to raise my child in a house full of love, boundaries, and safety. That was the only revenge that mattered. The silence didn't last long. A few weeks after the restraining order, the family started to split like glass under pressure. It began with small things. A cousin quietly unfollowed my parents on social media. Another messaged me and said, "I never liked how they treated you, but I didn't know it was that bad." I didn't reply. I wasn't looking for validation, but I saw the dominoes starting to fall. I never made a public post or called anyone out by name, but I talked quietly, honestly. At Noah's school, a couple of the PDA moms asked if everything was okay after I missed a meeting. I told them, "We've had a rough family situation. My parents mistreated my son." That's all I said. But word has a way of traveling when it's heavy with truth. At church, people noticed we weren't sitting in the same pew anymore. One woman asked why. I told her carefully, "My parents are not safe to be around my child, and I'm not keeping that a secret." She nodded, then took my hand and said, "Good for you." It reached further than I expected. Turns out, my dad had a seat on the neighborhood advisory board, mostly symbolic, but still a title. A few quiet emails, some murmurs from people who'd heard a story, and suddenly he was asked to step down. No drama, just a quiet, awkward exit. David and I never celebrated that moment, but we felt it. The shift. Like people were finally seeing through the perfect family act. Then came the visit. Janice showed up at our door on a rainy Wednesday. No call. No warning. I opened it a crack. Noah sitting on the couch behind. Her hair was frizzy from the rain, makeup streaked. "You need to stop this," she said, voice trembling. "This has gone too far." I stepped outside and shut the door behind me. "You're not supposed to be here," I said calmly. She laughed bitterly. "You think you're the only one who's suffered? You've ruined this family." I stood silent, letting the rain tap on my shoulders. Then I turned and opened the door just enough to call, "Noah, honey? Come here a second." He came to the doorway and took my hand without asking. I looked at her, really looked at her, and said quietly, "You ruined us long ago." Then I closed the door, locked it, and didn't look back. The weeks that followed were quiet, and for once, that was a good thing. I focused on Noah. On us. We started spending more time together, just the two of us. Pancake mornings, story time under a blanket fort, long walks where he told me about dinosaurs like they were his best friend. Slowly, the tired look in his eyes faded. He laughed more. He clung less. The fear was leaving his little body. I enrolled in a parenting workshop on Saturdays, not because I felt like a bad mom, but because I wanted to grow. I wanted to understand how to help him feel safe again, how to make sure my past didn't repeat through me. We also started family therapy. At first, Noah was shy, hiding behind a pillow. But by the third session, he was drawing pictures and showing them to the counselor, talking about the house with no snack. My heart broke a little every time he brought it up, but I was proud of him, for remembering, for sharing. One night, I invited a few moms from the PDA over for coffee. I didn't plan to open up, but somehow it came out. What happened with my parents, why we went no contact. I expected awkward silence. Instead, one of the moms reached over and said, "Mine were the same. You're not alone." The relief I felt in that moment was something I hadn't known I needed. We talked until midnight. Then Noah's birthday came. In the past, those days were tense. Either my parents would show up and make it about them, or I'd spend the day anxious, hoping nothing went wrong. But this year was different. We had balloons, cupcakes, a silly magician, and a house full of laughter. No guilt, no walking on eggshells. At one point during the party, I stood in the kitchen watching Noah run around with his friends, frosting on his nose, eyes bright. And just for a second, I flashed back to a birthday of mine, maybe 10 years old, sitting at the dinner table with a single candle and a muffin, my mom telling me, "No parties this year, too much noise." I blinked, and the memory faded. I looked at my son again, laughing, alive, loved. This was the life I was building, and for the first time in a long time, it felt like peace. Not perfect, not easy, but real. A month after Noah's birthday, a letter arrived. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting immediately. My mother's loops were always tight, almost angry-looking, even when she was trying to be soft. I stared at the envelope for a long time. David saw it on the counter and raised an eyebrow. "You gonna open it?" I nodded slowly. "Yeah, just not yet." Later that night, when the house was quiet, I sat on the couch and opened it with shaking hands. It was 3 pages long. It started with "Dear Emily," and the tone was exactly what I expected, sweet but cold underneath. She said she was sorry if I felt hurt, but quickly followed it with excuses. "We didn't know what to feed him. You never said he was so sensitive. You overreacted as usual." She ended it with, "We love you and Noah deeply. Please don't let one misunderstanding tear apart our family." Misunderstanding. I read it twice, then a third time. It made me feel everything: anger, guilt, sadness, confusion. I folded it back up and brought it to therapy. My therapist read it silently, then looked at me and said, "What do you feel?" "Manipulated," I said immediately. "She's not sorry for what she did. She's sorry for what I did in response." She nodded. "Exactly." We talked about it for a while. About how real apologies don't come with excuses. About how love without accountability isn't love, it's control. And when I left, I knew what I had to do. Nothing. I didn't write back. I didn't call. I didn't even keep the letter. I burned it in the kitchen sink that night, watching the words curl and disappear. And when it was gone, I felt lighter. The thing is, setting boundaries doesn't just protect you, it changes things around you. Over the next few weeks, I started noticing it. My cousin Rachel reached out one afternoon. We hadn't spoken much since the fallout, but she messaged me with something simple. "I just wanted to say thank you. I didn't realize how much I normalized until I heard what happened with you. You helped me open my eyes." That one message meant more to me than my mother's entire letter. I didn't set out to be anyone's example. I just wanted to keep my son safe. But if my story made even one person think differently about how they were raised, what they tolerated, what they thought was normal, then maybe something good could grow from all of this. The past couldn't be undone, but it didn't have to be repeated. The ashes of the letter were long gone, but the feelings stayed, clean, final, freeing. I didn't owe them anything. Not my time. Not my forgiveness. Not another chance. One night, while Noah was brushing his teeth, I found myself staring out the kitchen window. For a moment, without meaning to, a memory came back. I was maybe 8, sitting at the dinner table, a plate of cold green beans in front of me. My mom was wiping the counter, ignoring me. My dad watched the TV in the other room. I remember my stomach growling and thinking, I must have done something wrong. I blinked the memory away. I looked over at the dining table, crumbs from dinner still there, a toy truck left behind, a paper Noah had colored earlier. Our home was messy, noisy, alive. Noah came running in with toothpaste on his chin. "Mama." I brushed for real this time. I smiled and wiped his face. "I'm proud of you." Then I knelt beside him, pulled him into a hug and whispered, "You'll never feel that kind of hunger, baby. Not for food, not for love. I promise." A few days later, David surprised us. He packed a picnic, peanut butter sandwiches, apple slices, juice boxes, and drove us to the park by the lake. Nothing fancy, but it felt like everything. Noah chased ducks, got grass stains on his pants, and laughed so hard he snorted. David leaned back on the blanket beside me. You okay? I looked at him, then at our son running in circles, completely free. Yeah, I said. I really am. I used to think walking away from my parents was the hardest thing I'd ever do. But the truth is, I didn't just walk away. I walked into something. A life I built. One that's warmer, softer, safer. And finally free. What's your take? Was Emily right to cut ties for good? Or should she have given her parents one last chance? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I really want to hear what you think. And if you enjoy these kinds of stories, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next one.